right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. If you've been tuning in October, you know that it's been a busy month. We have our space exploration months connecting with astronauts, engineers, and scientists from all different organizations like NASA, CSA, ESA, SpaceX. So lots of great events coming up this month. If you head to exploringbytheseat.com, you can find all of those events and how to join live with your classrooms. Also, every month, we always mix in a series of events exploring science, adventure, exploration, and conservation. And whenever we can, we like to do virtual field trips out into the field. And that's what we have in store for everybody today. We're going to head on board the Exploration Vessel Nautilus, where the Ocean Exploration Trust and the National Geographic Society are exploring the waters off Maui and Hawaiʻi Island, studying sharks and microplastic pollution. So this is the From Shore to Abyss program. It is expanding the Ocean Exploration Trust's exploration program from deep sea into coastal ecosystems. So I'm really excited to be able to bring our team who's joining us from Nautilus today. Let's bring them in here front and center. Hey, everyone. How are we doing today?
Hey, good morning. We're so excited to be with you all today.
Yeah, good morning.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I will let the two of you take over for a little bit, introduce yourselves, and take us into your expedition world, and then we'll go with a little Q&A action.
Awesome.
Perfect. Oh, I'm Daniel Kinzer. Aloha, everyone. I live here in Hawaii, and I'm part of the shark research team on board Nautilus right now.
And good morning, aloha. My name is Megan Cook. I am part of the Ocean Exploration Trust Nautilus team here. As Joe described, we've been having these really exciting expeditions the last few weeks and are so excited to answer your questions and talk with you more about it. So wherever you are in the world, you've taken a very fast trip to come here to the islands of Hawaii. We are just off the island of Lanai this morning, early morning, and we want to introduce you to where we're sitting, which is Exploration Vessel Nautilus. This is kind of like a floating city. She's 224 feet long, home to 50 explorers at a time, and is really the platform from which we can go to places where we still have a lot left to learn about the ocean. Often that means going really far offshore, out to the deep ocean, diving with deep diving robots, and looking at places like seamounts and underwater canyons. But what I think is exciting is when we think about like where can we still keep learning about the ocean, the answer is everywhere.
All of it.
Yeah, and so these expeditions have brought us a little closer to shore to study some of the shallow water ecosystems here.
Yeah, it's been really exciting to get to be on Nautilus while she's so close to home for me, right off the coast of the Hawaiian Islands, where ocean explorers have been studying the marine environment for hundreds of years. So it's really fun to be sort of in that legacy of ocean exploration and studying sharks, one of my favorite animals.
That was one of our explorer tools going off, the alarm clock.
The alarm clock.
The wake up early alarm clock. So we thought we'd introduce you a little bit to what the shark team has been doing and found. I tell you a little about the plastics team, and then we can't wait to talk with you all about whatever you're interested in about the ocean and these projects. So scientists love a good acronym. We have been using a tool called a BRUV. What does BRUV stand for, and what's a BRUV all about?
So BRUVs are baited remote underwater video systems. Essentially, it's a GoPro and a little bit of a cage with a bait arm attached, just enough bait to sort of get the sharks excited and tease them into coming in front of the camera. And we drop these GoPros to various depths. We have to put them into some canisters that are depth rated to go deep enough. So you can see that black canister there inside that cage. So we've been putting these down anywhere between 15 meters all the way down to 200 meters deep, and trying to invite the sharks in for a little bit of photo, a little bit of video.
Okay, Dan, are we feeding the sharks?
We are not feeding the sharks. The bait is not really enough for them to eat anything. Just puts a little scent in the water so that they want to show off and they want to come in front of the camera. So it's a pretty interesting technique. It's pretty non-invasive. We're out there in the field. We don't want to disrupt the sharks. We don't want to do any harm to the sharks. We really don't even want the sharks to know that we're there. just hoping to catch a glimpse, and it gives us a general idea of what sharks are in the area, what species are present, and kind of relative abundance. So yeah, we've been doing that for the last 3 weeks, gathering hours and hours of footage with those GoPros.
What I think is really cool is this means this project is really wide open, right? Like this means we're putting this kind of like interesting, nice smelling, or maybe to our noses, really bad smelling. It's pretty gnarly, the bait. Uh, bait out into the water in the canisters, and we're not sure who's going to come by. There are 20 species of mono, of sharks that live in the Hawaiian Islands that call this place their home. These are just some of them. We put together some photos, and National Geographic explorer educator Kelly Kohler from the shark team put together an awesome shark guide that you can find on nautiluslive.org if you want to learn more about all of these species. But we've all kind of had some of our hopes out there, maybe a tiger shark. In the upper right, you see a scallop hammerhead, which is exciting. That's a critically endangered shark that calls these waters home. Gray reef sharks, white tips, black tips, sandbars. The list goes on and on. But it's been really exciting, like kind of imagining who we might see. Do you have a favorite shark?
Oh, do I have a favorite one? Yeah, absolutely. I think being here in Hawaii right now, typically it's whatever shark wants to show up in front of our bruvs. That's my favorite, excuse me, favorite one. We get so excited, we drop that GoPro down and we pull it up about an hour later, stays down about 60 minutes. And we don't know what showed up in that hour. And we've got to get the GoPro back to the ship and pull out the SD card and see what came to give us a visit. And sometimes we don't get any sharks in front of the camera, but when we do, we find a lot of other cool creatures too, who are interested in being stars on our bruv cameras. But yeah, whichever shark shows up is typically my favorite. So we got a chance to see a gray reef shark. It was our first shark that we saw with our bruvs a few weeks ago here off the coast of Lanai. And you can see that shark here kind of being interested in the canister, not really getting to eat too much. He might have been a little frustrated, or actually I think this was a juvenile female gray reef shark that kept coming back. And you know what? We have hours and hours of this footage. One of the cool parts about our project, which is called Malama Mano, integrating ancestral intelligence with artificial intelligence, with AI, you could see those green rectangles showing up around the shark. So we actually have AI software. We're working with other members of the team. The lead on that is Sarah Khalid, another National Geographic explorer who has developed Shark Pulse. And it's an application that can analyze our video data for us. We've still been going through it. We're still training that application, but really cool to be applying artificial intelligence to study and care for sharks here in the Hawaiian Islands. Again, something the Hawaiians and Native Hawaiians have been doing for hundreds of years. So.
Yeah, I think one of the other technologies we want to introduce you to is the environmental DNA angle of the project. And environmental DNA takes advantage of the fact that Daniel, that me, that you, sitting right there, wherever you are shedding off little bits of your DNA into your environment. That could come from your skin cells brushing off. It could come from, hair falling out of your head, in our case. From sharks, it could come from mucus that's on them. It could come from scales sloughing off. But as they move through this watery environment, they're leaving little bits of themselves behind. And if we can capture that DNA within a cell, within a scale, but within the water, ultimately, we can kind of get a sense of who has been in the area that maybe didn't swim right in front of the video cameras, right in front of the bruvs. So we've been doing that. Here is a picture of another shark team member, Kelly, who's led the environmental DNA component, or eDNA, and she's holding a Nisken bottle, which is a serious oceanographic tool that you could totally build at home. It is a PVC pipe with some toilet plungers and a little bit of bungee cord in between, and it can be lowered down through the water with both end caps open until it gets to the certain depth we want to sample. You can send down a messenger, which is a little weight that bumps into a trigger, and that releases the bungee cord and snaps the water closed, or the tubes closed, and captures that water. When it comes back onto the ship, it goes down into the lab. The lab's a little quiet right now, but do you want to talk through that process?
Yeah, I should be down there. I might have to head down there after this, but We bring those water samples back on board, like Megan said, and we bring them into the lab where you can see in the bottom left corner, there's basically a little vacuum pump, and we put filters that bind to the DNA on top of that vacuum pump and just slowly pull the water through those filters. It takes a couple hours to process our samples each day, but by the time we're done, we have several filters that we store in the -80 freezer here on board Nautilus, so that we can eventually take those ashore to the University of Hawaii, where the lab there will further analyze them. They'll spin out all of the non-genetic material, the non-DNA, and then they'll put it through something called a thermocycler, and that helps grow all the DNA, make multiple copies, lots and lots of copies of the DNA, and then we can send it to a sequencing computer. All of this stuff gets pretty technical and above my pay grade, but it's exciting. In a couple of months, we'll be able to learn without even having to see these sharks, without or any of the creatures that we might find. It's really neat that we can get a picture of what was there. So yeah, we're excited to get those results back and see if the things that the sharks and other creatures that did show up on our camera show up in the eDNA samples, and are there things that we didn't see on camera but were out there in the water. So super excited to see what comes back once we get those processed and analyzed.
For sure. I want to show you one of my favorite not a shark clips that the team has recorded so far.
We love our not a shark.
Yeah. I think it gives you a good sense, and the more I learn about eDNA, the more I look at a scene like this and think like, oh, what all are you going to capture? So this is an open sandy area. You can see some corals in the background. Down here in the lower left, there's something that catches the lower right catches my eye, and that is this sand pile, which is likely from some kind of shrimp or worm that would have dug up that sand from down below. That's why it would be a different color. Have some beautiful Hawaiian triggerfish swimming around, some other things that you're likely to all catch in the eDNA. Something big over here, maybe it's an alua, maybe it's a parrotfish, all these different things coming in. And then we'll fast forward here for a second. We get a pretty cool visitor coming in out of the corner. And this is a big moray eel. Yeah, I was trying to think of it. Does it have a specific name in Hawaiian?
I don't. Oh, so the eel we call puhi. That's the Hawaiian name, and this one looks like a spotted. Oh, I'm trying to get a closer look on the camera there. It's super beautiful. Super cool to see them. We see them a lot when we go snorkeling or diving, but they're often just poking their heads out of the reef. And so to see one out swimming is a lot of fun, and love the way this eel was exploring our bait arm. So what you see, this bait arm's a little different than the one that was we showed earlier with the gray reef shark. This is what we use for our more shallow deployments. You can tell there's more light in the water. So this wasn't very deep, but yeah, that was cool.
Super cool. Do you want to talk about the other shark that we've seen?
Oh, wow.
The big surprise.
So sometimes you go out hoping to find sharks in the ocean, and then they just come and find you. And we were gifted with two special moments that the ocean, that Kanaloa, the Hawaiian god of the ocean, provided us. And this was the first time. And we were off the coast of Maui, off Oluwalu, which is a Mission Blue Hope spot from Sylvia Earle's organization that's been working to protect the ocean for a long time. But many of you will already recognize this. It's the largest fish, the largest shark in the ocean. And this one was a juvenile male, probably somewhere but around 15 feet, maybe a little bit bigger. I like to tell fish stories, so it might be 20 feet. But it was, they can grow to as long as 40 feet, and it swam right up to our boat. It circled 4 or 5 times, gave us time to gently get into the water so that we could observe it underwater. And you'll see in a moment as it makes a pass of our team out in the water. Ariana, our lead science researcher who works in the Philippines with whale sharks, was yelling at us to get photos of both sides so that we could ID the sharks. Those spotted patterns are unique to each individual, kind of like our fingerprints. You can see almost gave us a little tail swipe there, but so gentle. These beautiful sharks do have lots of teeth, but they're really tiny and they don't use them. They are filter feeders, so they're just moving through the water, gathering plankton, small bits to snack on. Lots and lots of small bits to snack on. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful animal. What a gift from Kanaloa and the ocean to be able to have that experience. And so sometimes we're studying the ocean, sometimes we're the ones being studied in the ocean. Really cool to be there with the whale shark.
Yeah, absolutely a highlight of the whole expedition. Just briefly, before we get to your questions, I wanted to share a little about the marine microplastics team who are here, and we've all been learning, right? Part of being an explorer is to learn, and one of the best parts of working on Nautilus is that every year, tons of different researchers come with their unique passions for how we can help the ocean. I've learned so much from Dan. I've learned so much from the microplastic team. So really happy to share their work and what they are up to. The marine microplastic team is led by National Geographic explorer Rachel Miller here, who's wearing this awesome orange shirt. And this is her teammate Theo. Theo is here from Greece, and it's really exciting to do this project because it's a kind of project that we all can do, that we all can be part of, like citizen science. So what this project is looking at is the little tiny fibers and little tiny bits of plastic called microfibers and microparticles that are all around us from all of our life and all the plastic things in our lives, whether those are, fibers in our clothes or there are the manufacturing of all the stuff that's in our house or on our ship. It turns out these are breaking into little pieces, and this is a relatively new discovery. We've only been doing science on this subject for about 10 years. But our goal here was to sample both the air and the water to figure out like where these microfibers are. We're expecting to find them in almost all the samples, but we're wondering if we're closer to shore, are there more? If we're closer to cities, are there more? If we're farther away, do we find less or do we find different types? So this is really just an investigation. It's a great, curious investigation. And the tools they're using are super high tech, bucket. Um, Throw a bucket out into the ocean, collect water, bring it back together, and very much like the eDNA, they're then filtering that water down to gather up all those teeny tiny little bits of plastic. They're also testing out a new microscope type that uses UV light. And when you shine this special type of light onto these plastics, they glow in different colors. So you have a chance to see them better than you could ever see them, with a microscope, just a normal microscope. And they're really excited because these are low cost microscopes, and they're testing them and working with the team that's developing them so that they could go out to classrooms, they could go out to explorers just like you, and you could investigate your own backyard, your own stream, your own corner of the ocean of the world, or catch them out of the air, literally anywhere, and start to learn a little bit more about this, because the more we learn, we're going to then be able to propose good solutions. Like, I bet you all could invent some super cool new materials that maybe don't shed microplastics, or a super cool machine that's going to catch these, or that will take them once they're caught and manufacture them into something awesome and really helpful for the planet. So there's so much space for new ideas in this research, and that's maybe the coolest part, I think.
Yeah, it's been so exciting to be on board with them and see this. That's Theo there throwing the can with Rachel, instructing. She's been doing this for the last few years, and really really fascinating to think about what's making it out of our lives and out into the ocean. And Rachel's taught me a lot while I've been on board. Yeah, I'm excited to see where this project goes. Like Megan was saying, the more we can bring science into all of our homes and our communities, I think the better the world's going to be, especially when it's targeting things, real potential problems like this. So same with the bruvs and the shark research that we're doing. We're really looking, the toys on board the Nautilus, the ROVs that go deep in the ocean, and all of the fascinating technology on board. We're lucky that Nautilus shares all the information and all the science and data that they're collecting with us. But those toys are pretty expensive. Those research tools are really expensive. So it's also cool to find ways to do science that everybody can access and everybody can do in their own places. And so I'm excited to keep participating in the microplastics research even after I get off the ship.
Yeah. Well, that's a little bit of what we've been up to. It's been 3 weeks of like nonstop exploration and excitement out here. But let's throw the floor over to you. We're here to talk about whatever you're curious about in the ocean, and ready for the first question.
All right. What a great expedition. It looks like you're having an absolute blast. Both projects are pretty cool, but oh man, the sharks. And there's nothing better than getting in the water and diving with sharks. So that's pretty wild. That whale shark visit is pretty special. Very cool. All right. Well, if you were tuning in via YouTube, use that chat sidebar. Let us know where you're watching from, send in your questions there. But let's grab a couple questions from our camera classroom. So where did they go? There we go. We're going to go to Miss Foster's crew. They're joining us in Alabama, 7th and 8th graders. Let's bring them in front and center. There we go. Hey, Miss Foster's class, how we doing?
Good.
Good. Hi, Alabama. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
They aren't Auburn.
No, we're Alabama.
No, we're Alabama. Don't worry.
Go ahead. Paper.
As your research allowed you to discover how much plastic sharks and other fish are ingesting while swimming?
Oh, that's a great question. And while we are not specifically able to look at that on the ship, so we're not taking tissue samples or other things from the sharks. Like I said, our research is meant to be really non-invasive. There is some interesting research that's looking at where microplastics are ending up, and they definitely are ending up in all living creatures in the sea, from tiny little plankton all the way up to probably that whale shark filtering a lot of microplastics as well, especially given the way that it feeds. So we do know from other studies that is happening, and it is a problem. So it's a great question, and it prompts some really important research that we're going to need to keep doing for a long time. To understand exactly what is the impact of all of these microplastics entering the ocean. So there's I'm glad you're already asking great questions that leading scientists are asking. So while we're not doing it on board the ship, I do hope that you and other scientists out there will be able to figure out where these things are ending up. We're finding all of these microplastics even in our own bodies, that are so it's pretty scary to think about where they're all going, but I know that with people like you, we're gonna find the answers and come up with some good solutions.
All right. Well, Miss Foster's crew, if you've got another question on deck, let's go.
I have another question. Why was expedition?
I think we lost a little bit of that. We kind of lost the middle bit.
Why was Hawaii chosen for the expedition?
Yeah, great question. So Nautilus has moved all over the world in its 14 years of being an exploration vessel. When we meaning the Ocean Exploration Trust is the nonprofit that I work for and that owns and operates Nautilus. And we acquired the ship when it was in the Mediterranean. And so we worked in the Black Sea and the Aegean for a number of years. In 2013, we crossed across the Atlantic and spent a couple seasons exploring the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean. But we keep moving. We're moving west around the world. We crossed through the Panama Canal in 2015 and have worked in the Eastern Pacific as far south as Ecuador and as far north as the Alaska-Canada border, and then have continued to move west out into the Central Pacific Ocean. Moana Nui Akea, as the Hawaiian people refer to this ocean, and have worked from Samoa up into Papahanaumokuakea to the north and the west. So this is the largest wilderness on the planet. There is so much left for us to learn and reveal new knowledge about in new ways with robots. And so we have been basing the ship here this season, exploring lots of different expeditions in lots of different directions. So this was really the place to have the ship here, and that's the practical part, right? The really exciting and community-based part is that the Hawaiian people are such important scientists. They are such important knowledge holders of the Pacific Islands at large and of this ocean. For generations, they have loved and cared for and been in relationship with a healthy ocean. And so we have a lot to learn by having the privilege to come here with our ship and to learn from communities and to help support them in what questions they have. So I'm really excited National Geographic Society was able to partner with us to come here, to bring in research teams and continue to build on that, all of that knowledge that's there, all of that need. There's no more urgent time than now to learn about our oceans. And so I think it's a lot of exciting things coming together.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, now is the time to have Nautilus here. From as someone who lives here in the Hawaiian Islands, we're so thankful to have such an incredible organization helping our community go deeper and understand what's going on in the ocean that the Hawaiian people have loved and cared for so long. So, yeah, it's a great question.
All right, very cool.
Thank you.
Well,
You're welcome.
Crew, we'll tuck you away for the moment. We may be able to squeeze one more in, but there's another class in Alabama joining us today. They're in Birmingham. Let's bring them front and center. Miss Thrasher's crew. How are we doing today?
Hello. Hi. Okay, we have apparently lots of questions, but we'll narrow it down. Isaac, here, come. You can come up here now. They can hear you. Spin down so they can see. There you go.
How many sharks have you seen, like big, small?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the total count, but I know that I can tell you we've seen gray reef sharks and sandbar sharks, and we actually have a couple of clips that we're not sure exactly what we've seen. So here you'll see some beautiful halamida. This is a seaweed or an algae that's fairly common here in Hawaii, and you'll see a sandbar shark cruising through in just a second. But we haven't processed all of our footage yet, and we have to send some of it over to the artificial intelligence, to the shark pulse side of the team, to try to get a better idea, a better ID on a couple of the sharks that we've seen. Sometimes they come right up to the camera, like that gray reef shark you saw earlier, and then sometimes they're like the sandbar shark, and we have to kind of wait to get a decent shot of it. So that's just the reality of the science. Sometimes it's super clear, sometimes it's not so clear. But I'll say we've seen somewhere between 5 or 6 different sharks gathered over hours of footage. So what's really required is that we need communities to be able to do this kind of observation and science more regularly, so that we can get more and more data, more and more images of sharks, and a better understanding of what's out there. I haven't even seen this one kind of creep into the frame yet. But it's sandbars are super beautiful too. Yeah, it's a great question.
I love this wrasse over here. You get to see like a couple different fish. And this is where like the challenge of an artificial intelligence reading a video is it's like a little harder. It was pretty clear when there was nothing but shark outline in the first video, but here you have a little bit of obstruction. It's deeper, it's darker. I think we got the full video swapped in here, so let's scroll ahead. And this is kind of how we look through the data, and by we I mean Ariana Augustinus, who's scrubbing through the data each night. We kind of look through. There is a large fish, a little tuna that cruises through. You're kind of like, that's cool, and then you can kind of keep scrubbing through the data, and eventually the shark makes its appearance here.
Waiting all the way till the end.
Hey,
yeah, there it is.
I was like, apparently we have a tornado drill. So, but we got the meat.
Safe.
I know, right? Right in the middle of it all. What was your question?
Have y'all studied any kind of coral?
Have you studied any kind of coral? So maybe we can like get that chatted in because we have to go before we get in trouble.
Absolutely. Be safe. Take care of yourself.
It'll be recorded as well, Miss Thrasher, so you can go back and get the answer.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Okay.
Great Roll Tide shirt.
Thanks, Roll Tide.
Wonderful.
All right, so they were squeezing in that question as they had to go for their drill. Coral, are you guys looking at coral at all, or has Nautilus maybe looked at it in the past as well?
Yeah, I think well, both definitely we can share some of the cool corals Nautilus has found, but we do go down as divers and check out the habitat that we're going to drop the bruvs in. So we do a survey of that and get some up close time with the coral reef here in Hawaii, where we're doing a lot of our research. We're dropping our bruvs in sandy areas to avoid doing any damage to the reef. And corals are animals and have DNA like all other living things. So we're hoping to find some different coral species in the eDNA as well in that analysis. So yeah, it's exciting. We're not focusing our research on corals, but we do understand that there are important connections between the health of the coral and the coral reef and the sharks that call it home. So we're excited to look at those connections and try to figure them out. But yeah, Nautilus has done some amazing work on some fascinating corals. Maybe we can share a little bit about that.
What is really exciting to me about coral is that once you understand kind of the job coral does, right, which is help hold an ecosystem, kind of be the apartment buildings of the deep sea or the shallow ocean, right? Places where you can feed, places where you can live, places where lots of different animals come together. They do the same job in the deep sea. And although they don't use sunlight, they have like a slightly different way of making their living because there's no sunlight down in the deep sea. They do that same job. They're places where we see tons of different organisms together. These are corals on the side of a seamount, and you can see they're kind of different shapes. They've got long branching stalks. As you adjust the focus here, you can maybe see some of those polyps. They look a little bit like squishy fingers, tiny squishy fingers, and there are thousands of different polyps on a coral colony like this. We can estimate how old a coral is by looking at its base in the deep sea. If we were able to collect this, you could see the rings inside, but again, we choose not to pick up whole coral colonies like that because these corals have been happily making their living in the deep sea for often thousands and thousands of years. This is a glass sponge, so a little bit different than a coral, but we often see reefs of these together. Corals and sponges, you can see there's some crinoids and some brittle stars. There are often these really funny creatures that are called squat lobsters. It's a little bit of a misleading name. They're not a lobster, they're a crab, but they have these super long dangly arms, and all of these animals are trying to grab things out of the water. That's how they make their living, is by capturing things with their tentacles or capturing things with their arms, in the case of these brittle stars and crinoids. So it's really exciting to me. I love deep sea corals. They come in all these different colors. This is another sponge that's making its living that way, capturing food in the deep sea. It's kind of cool. I think it looks a little bit like a Dr. Seuss land. See these corals in different colors and shapes and sizes in the deep sea. And we're just getting to know some of these species, and we're still finding massive coral reefs in the deep ocean. And that's important, right? Once we know where these massive corals are, we can help put into place measures that can take care of them, like making sure we don't impact the seafloor there, because we know it will take thousands of years for an ecosystem like that to grow back.
Yeah, it's like an old growth forest on land. It's really beautiful. It's amazing.
Good question.
All right.
Hope you're all safe there. Let's go.
I think it was a drill, so I think they're okay today. Yeah. So we've got a question here from a Canadian classroom on YouTube. Now, Megan, you've been on one or two of these expeditions, but Daniel, maybe this is more for you. What's life like on the ship?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I'm a rookie on board. This is my first time. I was part of the same research team. This is our second expedition. We've been kind of swapping out teams here in Hawaii, but it is like living on this amazing, like super diverse little international city. We have people on board from so many different countries who speak so many different languages and have so many different skill sets and interests and life stories. So one of the things that's cool about being on board the Nautilus is you just get to make a lot of new friends, and that's been a lot of fun. I get to sleep in a bunk bed. I don't fit very well. I'm about 6'8", but I have a nice little lower bunk that I tuck into every night. It feels a little bit like summer camp. The food is amazing, and one of my favorite parts of being on board the Nautilus. We have some great chefs in the kitchen, and we get cookies most afternoons. So we're not really roughing it. We're out here on Exploration Vessel Nautilus, just kind of living it up in the Hawaiian Islands. So really, really enjoying that. And yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to just wake up in the morning on the water, be out on the ocean, and for this particular expedition to be able to see my home and see the Hawaiian Islands from the sea is really spectacular. So yeah, there's a lot of great things about being on board the Nautilus, but I think people and food are some of the most exciting. So yeah, I've loved being out here and hope I get to make it out again soon. Megan, what's it like for you after being on so many expeditions?
Yeah, I
Getting a little
still
boring.
love it. I still love it. So I've been part of organizing more than 70 Nautilus expeditions, and I was thinking about it this morning, even when I like crawled out of my bunk bed at like 3:30 in the morning. We're so excited to come and talk with you all, and was just like, how cool is this? That the thing I think I love the most about our expeditions is that we share them. So all the educators, everybody watching at home, you can check us out on YouTube. You can check us out on all of the social media channels. We're everywhere, and we get to broadcast what we do 24 hours a day. I liked when the first time I got to go to sea was on a ship with no connectivity at all, and it was a really special experience for me to get to know the ocean and have that. But after a while, I was like, come home with all these stories. I'm sure some of you have had like an awesome day at school, and you come home to your parents with all these stories, and you're like trying to explain your whole day compressed into a little bit of time. I love that I don't have to do that anymore. People can watch my friends and family. I grew up in Idaho, pretty far away from the ocean, so they can come on my ocean adventures with me and get to meet some of these awesome people that I get to meet, and that makes it really special.
Yeah, that connectivity is pretty amazing. I can't believe how great it is. Almost already taking it for granted after just a couple of weeks that get to be out here on the ocean, but still connected to so many awesome students and teachers and scientists and my family and friends from around the world. So it's really awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I definitely remember the food from my trip on Nautilus in 2018, and thank goodness there's a gym that you can visit every day.
That's right. I haven't used that one yet. Oh, I better get down there.
All right. Well, Ms. Thrasher's crew, I did see you pop back in for a second there. If you have one more question, we can give you a final question after your drill, but the camera went dark. Oh, nope, there they are.
Okay, Hazel, go ahead. How long are you out at sea?
Oh, a nice question. This expedition has been 2 weeks long, and we're headed back into port. Actually, tonight we'll make the transit from Maui or Lanai over to Oahu, where port is. And I was also on board for this expedition was 1 week. And the past expedition, the one before it was 2 weeks. So I've been on board for 3 weeks.
What is time?
We lose track a little bit of time while we're out here, but I think 2 weeks, 3 weeks is kind of a typical expedition length, maybe a little longer sometimes.
Yeah, that's pretty normal. And then we put lots of those expeditions back to back to back. So this year, we had about 12 expeditions, but each time in between each one, we go back to port. Different people can join. Some people will go home. Daniel and I will both go home after this expedition, and some new friends will come and join the ship. And we also fill up the ship. Then we get like a semi-truckload or two of groceries, and we have a fuel truck come, and we get more water. So you kind of like restock after every expedition, people and food.
Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for that great question. Well, let's start off with a shout out to our classrooms. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the great questions. And we love every trip out to Nautilus. The connectivity is absolutely incredible because we do work with a few other ocean vessels around the world, and nothing compares to the connectivity from Nautilus and where we can take students. So what a great expedition. I hope there's lots more sharks to come. And if you head over to nautiluslive.org, the cameras are going. So maybe, I think Daniel said he's heading to the lab. Maybe we'll even see Daniel doing a little eDNA work down in the lab later today.
Yeah, come help me out. Come help me out. I need some company while I'm down there filtering the DNA.
All right. Well, Daniel, Megan, thank you so much. We're going to sign off for today. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Mahalo, Joe. Good to see you.